I'm super excited to be here. I love working at HAYVN. I love the community. I said to someone the other day, the nice part about working here is I feel like I'm just walking into my office, yet the majority of people don't work at Compass. So it's like this incredible environment to work into, and it's very inspiring for me on a daily level to see what other people are doing and their growth of their business as us at Compass also grow. Although we were a startup 8 years ago, which I can talk about a little bit later, and we went public about 2 weeks ago, which has been an exciting growth process for us. But I am a senior managing director real estate at Compass. I work in the Connecticut markets. I am the broker for the state, and then I oversee 3 offices, soon to be 4: Darien, New Canaan, and Westport, and soon we're about to open Fairfield. We're additionally in Stanford and Greenwich as well. And I also work in the New York City markets, where I am from as a 5th-generation native New Yorker. But I do now live in Connecticut, so I haven't gotten the driver's license yet, but I do vote here.
Great. Okay, well, let's kick in. So today's talking about your journey and what you learned from selling your business to Compass. So maybe you can just start, and I'm just so honored to have your mother on to talk through this, and maybe you can share some stories. Tell me about your original business and what that was like.
Well, yeah, first off, my mother, Elizabeth, who goes by Libba, is here. And somehow I'm so excited she's here. So I hope I know that there'll be corrections, Libba, and you can tell them to me at the end. But yeah, so my mother, who's an incredible woman, is here. And my mother, like me, is one of the few people I know who actually went into the industry of residential real estate right out of college or graduate school. And my mother was one of the top agents in New York and worked for a company that just things probably weren't the best, and they needed to be a little bit of a shakeup. And I think at the time in 1980, they didn't call it startups. They just, you sort of fledged your own path. And she had a wonderful husband, my late father, and then me. I was 10 months old. And my father said to my mother one day, "You should start your own firm." And Libba said, "I don't know how to do that. I'm really good at what I do. I'm great at being real estate, but I don't know how to run a business." And my father, who was an investment banker, said, "You know exactly what you're doing. You're going to be great at this." So she and a partner, and I think it was with a $10,000 line of credit, opened Stribling. And they opened it with 8 other agents, all women of the sort of same vintage, who were all on the Upper East Side. As Libba tells me, the first day they got there, they didn't even have phones that worked. And here were these, 8 people sort of trudging along. And as time went by, I watched my mother sort of have one floor in a building. Then they had a second floor. Then they opened the retail side. I remember when they got a fax machine, that was a big day. And over time, as I grew up, I remember watching her just keep building and keep building. And I think, interestingly enough, for me, I saw this company growing it. I wasn't really cognizant. I think probably because I was, in high school, I didn't really realize the sort of empire building. And I then, it's probably about the time I was 15, I saw my mother become the first US brokerage to start advertising properties in France. So suddenly we were an international company. And it grew and grew. And then when I went to college in actually Massachusetts, I went to the College of the Holy Cross. I have a degree in comparative world religions, which is on an esoteric and intellectual level, extraordinarily interesting. But having a degree in comparative world religion with a focus on modern Hindu thought isn't like extraordinarily practical. So I knew after people would say to me, "Well, one day you will come work at Stribling and take it over." And I would say, "Nope, I have zero interest. I'm really proud of Libba. I called her mom then. I'm really proud of her. She's built this great company with about 100 agents, and they have the highest luxury market share. But I'm going to go to culinary school, and I'm going to move to San Francisco, and I'm going to leave New York, and I'm going to trudge my own path." And it turned out culinary school is not great. I didn't love it. I can still cook well, but I didn't like it. And I begrudgingly had a lease, and my mother's given me probably the 2 greatest pieces of advice in my life, which I actually think are important. One, the first one, which will come up later in the story, but is when you don't know the answer is, "I don't know, but I will find out." That will get you anywhere in life. And the second one is, for $5, you can buy a 20-pound bag of rice. You'll never go hungry if you have $5. And I bring this up because it was very motivational for me, because one, I had a lease in San Francisco. The .com industry had just busted, and there were no jobs to be had, but I knew that I could always figure a way to eat. And that was very inspiring because I was 22 and I had $0. So she said to me, listen, I'm not going to pay for you to live out there for a year, but I will make an introduction into a real estate firm and you can get a job. And I said, oh, I don't want to do this. This is awful. But there were no jobs. So I ended up working at a company called Pacific Union, which amazingly is now owned by Compass. And the first day, at the end of the day, I was like, oh God, this stinks. I really love it here. And so all of a sudden I realized that I just pushed away probably something that was in my DNA. The great probably story of my business career is it started the day I was born. So my mother got a phone call on the way to New York Hospital where I was a scheduled delivery. And a couple said, well, we're thinking about buying this house. And Libba said, oh, I'm on my way to the hospital to have a baby. And they said, we'll take it. We'll bid full ask. And I joked that my mother was polite enough to take the time out of her day to have me while negotiating deals. So it's like very much ingrained in me, like real estate. I didn't have a choice. On the way to the hospital, my mother's wheeling and dealing and selling apartments. But after 2 years in San Francisco, I came home and I came back to Stribling, and I started as an agent. I was an agent there for about 5 years, mainly selling downtown. I lived in Chelsea, and I sold everything from lofts to penthouses, and I loved it. And then but I knew very quickly that I had a real passion for business. And my father had started investment banks, and that to me, I didn't understand how I could sort of take the real estate side and the business side together. So I had my mother. The beauty of my mother and the company was they didn't just make me the head of the company. I had to prove myself, and other people had to sponsor me to do it. And by the time it was done, I became president of the company in 2013. And by 2019, we were the third largest residential brokerage in New York City, with 350 agents doing about $2.5 billion a year in resale. And then additionally, we had a new development company that was the third largest. We did projects such as the Plaza Hotel, and which probably our most famous conversion that we represented. And when I look at what Libba and I accomplished, it's actually that's a very small part of my pride in what we did. It was 350 agents and everything they did and the culture that they created with us. That's probably the proudest moment in my business career.
Wow. I love that. Just the whole journey that you've gone through, and just also Elizabeth, just Libba, is that what we say?
Libba.
Yeah, just the journey at the beginning, and what you have to go to start a business as a woman, and in those times. I'd love to dive deeper into so you in 2019 you had this was this at the time that you had decided to sell your business, or what?
We made the decision. So interestingly enough, we did make the decision to sell. So I don't mean that. The decision to sell in many ways presented itself to us. We had this company, it was doing very well. We could have just kept going. And as a business leader, I always felt, everyone always says, well, and I'm going to make up examples. Like, let's just pretend I was in supermarkets. Well, look at Kroger's is doing. Look at what Whole Foods is doing. Look at what ShopRite's doing. I didn't really so much care, because if I spent all my time working on what everyone else was doing, I couldn't make myself better, and I couldn't constantly evolve. But I knew that at Stribling, we'd reached this pinnacle and we could keep going, but if we didn't evolve, then that would be probably the biggest hurdle to us. Because I think as a business leader, you often see people who have this extraordinary hubris, who think, well, I've done it well, I've hit the apex, what is there left to do? And I looked around and I saw that the world was changing in terms of real estate aggregators. And they were really taking a very large piece of the pie. They were trying to take the pie away from my agents. And what I care the most about at the end of the day is my employees can keep the lights on and feed their children. And I feel the same way about my agents. And whatever it takes to make that come to fruition is what I'm going to do. And that's what gets me out of bed. And I felt with all these people coming into the space that the model that we look at as residential brokerage would be changing. And I was the local train. I was like the, the C train, if you know New York well. And the aggregators, well, not say the names, but you can all guess, was the high-speed bullet train in Japan, or the Acela. But there was an express train coming up the tracks, and there's a lot of delays with the Acela, and the express can actually outrun it, and that was Compass. So, everyone throughout the years had wanted to purchase us. And while, so they were wonderful offers and there were great financial benefits to it, we weren't just going to sell the company for a check. And for us, we cared about the legacy. Our name remains on the company. It always will remain on the company. And we'd created this extended family. And whatever we were going to do, it had to benefit them. And so when Compass approached us, immediately we knew that this is a company built for the customers who are their agents, and also it was an ethos where people really truly loved each other. And I know that sounds super sappy, but emotion is a big part of success in business to me. And so when the moment presented itself, we knew that it was going to be a difficult choice, but we knew that looking back, as we now do 2 years later, the benefits it's created for our agents is like, tenfold. It's been incredible. But it was an emotional journey to do it, but it was the right one. And I'm glad it presented itself, and I'm glad it presented itself in the time.
I love that. And yeah, I mean, definitely as a business owner myself, your employees are the people that you need to service first before they have to stay healthy and happy. So what was the hardest part for you during this journey in terms of selling or just creating the business?
Yeah, I think the hardest part to me is I'm one of those people, so I believe that change is like amazing. I love it. I think that I tell a lot of my agents every day that you should have a moment every day where you jump off a cliff, and you may get bruised and battered on the way down, but those bruises and those scars are gonna, like, they actually will bring pride, and you'll learn things and you'll grow from it. And like, I ask myself every morning, like, what have you done? Or as I ask myself in the morning, and it really is, what have you done today to make yourself proud? And that's sort of how I start my day. And I think about it when I go back to sleep at night. And what makes me proud is, like, they can be very small instances, but I made a choice for 400 people, including employees, that they were going somewhere else. And that was very difficult for me because I took away their power to make a decision. And change is easy when you accept it, but when you haven't made that choice, it can be difficult. Now, it worked out. We had extraordinary retention rate, but it's shocking to people. I mean, I really felt like when I sold it, we went through, like, is it 7 stages of grief? There was anger, there was sadness, there was elation, and that was a difficult part of it.
Yeah, I understand. I love the saying that you just jump out of bed to and enjoy the change. I embrace change too. It makes it fun and exciting. Although this past year has been way too much.
True.
So let's see. I did want to ask you, what are some things that you were really happy about that you had done in the selling process, and what would you do differently?
What would I think to start with, what was I really happy with? I'm really happy that I exposed my agents to this incredible network of now 25,000 agents. Like, the one thing anyone who's, I mean, there are people on this call who have known me for a long time. And actually, my wife is here, so she's also here, so she really does know it. I'm extraordinarily blunt, and I'm very to the point, and I could not have imagined a better culture and a better way to grow your business than Compass. And that makes me so proud. That I'm proud that I think we're making history here. I think we will continue to make history as we get larger. And to be able to be a part of that, that's incredible. What would I have done differently? Lib and I really did facilitate the sale of the company ourselves with, like, a few advisors. And in hindsight, I wished I'd had probably a little bit more help. it's a serious process when you sell a business. I think it's very similar to selling a home, although they're different types of asset classes. At the end of the day, I sold a commodity, but it was an emotional and a people commodity. And that was very difficult to do. And I think that I wish I'd actually delved more into the emotions. Like I get business. I understand economies and economics and selling and, leveraging. I didn't understand the emotional side of it. And I think that far too many people ignore the emotional processing that has to go around business, whether you're an entrepreneur starting, a fake plant business, or you're an agent in Wilton. You have to, if you're not dealing with the psychological side of it, it can be extraordinarily detrimental.
So along the lines with that, so you said that the two of you were kind of the main people to sell the company. So did you surround yourself with a team at all?
Yeah, we did. We did. So we work and still continue to work with a very large accounting firm in New York, and we had people that were probably too expensive. I was looking at Liv, she could probably nod her head, but worth every dollar. And then we worked with a major law firm in New York that had always represented us as a company, but also we worked with their M&A team. I was recently talking to a friend of mine who's selling in a totally different sector. And he's like, oh yeah, I sort of found an attorney. And I said, whatever you do when you sell a company, I know the bills look outrageous, but you will actually get more if you surround yourself with a good team. It's why, like when you sell sell a house, you want a discounted commission, you're gonna get discounted service. So that's there are times in life where you should spend more money, and I think that's a time where you do, because there's a lot of and you have to have a team that works together and communicates, because there are tax implications, there are estate implications, there are everyday life implications, and if everyone's not talking to each other, and Libba will tell you this, I actually have notes here. I'm like a prolific note taker. You should write everything down. Because if you don't, it gets very complicated, and you can't no matter how smart you are. I mean, I have almost a photographic memory, and I couldn't remember everything.
Yeah, so having that team, and it sounds like also just having an emotional support person for part of your team would be something critical.
Hugely. I mean, it's so important. I mean, so I'm part of a business organization called YPO, which is Young Presidents Organization. Mm-hmm. And so much of what I do there is I have a group that I meet with monthly, and we talk about business all the time, but we always have to say the emotion I am feeling is, the emotion I'm feeling is anger. The emotion I'm feeling is sadness. The emotion I'm feeling is elation. Because if you push business down too far, one day it's going to bubble up, and that's never good.
Yeah, no, I love that. And that's kind of like our belief at HAYVN, is to have add that other layer where it's not only business, everything melts together, your life, your career, family, etc. So I want to just open this up to other people. I've been asking all the questions. So if anybody wants to unmute themselves or post the questions in chat, that would be great. Okay. So,
it's so exciting to listen to Elizabeth. She is amazing, and you are so humble. I didn't realize all of this about you. You are absolutely amazing, and I'm so grateful to be part of Compass. It's only been about 55 days, and this woman, the support, I came from Coldwell Banker. I cannot tell you how blessed I am to have her in my life to help me grow, and just in this short amount of time. But I see now, wow, you are this special human being on this earth. And thank God you are a part of my life and a part of this movement of Compass. And my question to you is, where do you think this movement is going to go? How far is this movement going to go? And with all these roadblocks, we have a lot of agents out there. I speak to them on a regular basis. Some of them feel, oh, Compass is just taking over and it's not right. And who do they think they are? And I think a lot of it has to do with envy. But where do you think we're going with this movement? And as our leader, how are you going to take us there? Because I feel it. I'm riding with you. But talk to us.
Peggy, first off, that is extraordinarily kind of you. And I actually have as most people on the call know, I'm never one without words, and I'm a little bit without words right now. So it's so meaningful to me. And that actually is going to tie in to my question, to my answer. Where do I think we're going? I think we'll continue to grow. I think we'll continue to grow smartly. I think we are, entering more and more markets all the time. We just announced North Carolina. We're in more of the Midwest. But we're going to grow with care. And this is to me, a couple things. I think it's very easy to look at us from the outside, and unless you're on the inside, you don't see the actual sort of empathy and heart that happens here. When I see someone grow exponentially, I'm proud of them, even if they're my competition. And that's hard for people to do. We have to, just as an industry or whatever industry you're in, you can say, I want to be like them, but I don't need to dislike them in order to do that. That isn't productive. That actually, I find, detracts from your business growth. Where do I think we're going? But I'm going to go back to care. We are very careful about who we hire. And everyone always says, oh, well, one bad apple, you can take it out of the bushel. You can, but it often can start rotting, and rotting apples will rot other apples around it. And then there's no good apples. I don't even like apples, but I use this a lot, right? And it taints the whole area. And once you remove that apple, yeah, it'll get better, but the apples will bruise around it. So we're very careful. And at the end of the day, yes, this is not a nonprofit. We want to make money. Everyone wants to make money. They want us to provide for their families, but you don't do it at the expense of everyone else. And so I think you'll continue to see us growth, but I think that we are careful about the leaders we have and the drive we have. But I think that what will keep us the same, but also expand, is going to be the focus upon having a culture that is unparalleled. So, and to me, that's where we go. And, in terms of what I want to do, I mean, at the end of the day, the most important thing to me is my agents. What do my agents need? And what can I do for them? And I think in order for any leader to be successful, you need to learn to listen. If you can listen, not take it personally. You can tell me, well, I think this is garbage. That's fine. That's your opinion. I need to listen, translate that, and fix it. Because otherwise, I think that I see people switch industries all the time, and people are like, oh, why'd they leave? I always think to myself, what did I do to create said scenario? What could I have done? How did I possibly fail them or not support them enough? And use it as a learn from reality situation. And I think that's what's so paramount. If we listened more, we'd be far more efficient. And I think so we listen here, and I think that's only going to continue to lead to growth.
Love that. Have you written a book too on all this stuff? Or
I've not written a book.
You have so many great tidbits. We need you in our book.
I'm actually working on a book. So I'm very public about this. I have an ADD. It's been a struggle my whole life, and it's taken me a long time to realize actually that it's the best thing that ever happened to me. It has made me a more creative person. It has made me, I think, a more understanding person. I can see situations differently. And I think also it makes you more observant because you're always looking around. But that's something that, and having ADHD, it's not going as quickly as possible, but I've outlined the first few chapters, and I think we all have things that make us different. I mean, for me, it's being gay, and also, my ADHD. And I use both of those as experiences to look at the world differently and try to see the world through the eyes of the people I work with and work adjacent to. So to try to make it, you need to be able to create a space where everyone comes in and feels safer to be here than they do at home. And if you can do that, you don't have to worry about profit. It'll come.
feel like you're talking to me directly. I need to clean that space. No, thank you. I think Teresa had a question too. Was that your?
Hi, yes, Elizabeth, that's just amazing and so inspirational. I have a question basically about with Stribling, how did you differentiate yourself? Because, you know, in the New York market, there are so many brokers, you know, Barbara Corcoran came up as Corcoran being, you know, the mainstream brokerage. I always remember Stribling as being like the really high end, super high service brokerage. So how did you differentiate yourself then? And how do you now in terms of service? And I guess it's like, what is your unique selling proposition that gives you an edge over your competitors whilst keeping them happy as well?
So I think so I think about it in this sense. I love a diner. There's nothing better than a diner. And when you go to the diner, have you ever noticed that the menu is like 10 pages long and it's like they have broiled scrod? Like what? Like lobsters and lobster steak at the diner? Like I came in for a tuna melt. Like this is so crazy. And you just can't fathom that they have all the supplies there to make it, right? You know, who drinks a grasshopper anymore? And I bring this up because that's how I look at business. I think, you know, like if you're an agent, right? Or you're a plumber, it doesn't really matter. We always said, what do we do and what do we do very well? And what we were really good at, we were very good at concierge service. We were very good at hand holding, and we were very good at the 5 million plus market. We serviced everything. I mean, in my career, I sold a $250,000 and a $20 million apartment in the same week. So we had the breadth, but we knew that that's what we were good at. And we didn't want to dilute that. So I think what's really important no matter who you are, you should do an internal audit every year. Like, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? And look at the weaknesses and say, can I turn them into strengths? But if I dilute and try to be everything, then I'm going to lose what I'm known for. So what we did is we knew that was our strength. So we really played to it. And we built that up. We used it in our advertising. We used it in our marketing. We used it in our service, and we hired people who did that. Now, I will say caveat to it. While that's what we were known for, there were times where we didn't get listings because people, oh, I'm sorry, it was only 2.5 million and you don't do that. And it's like, oh, no, wait, we do that, right? But you need to make sure that if you try to be everything to everyone, you will be nothing to everyone.
Very interesting. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Is there any other questions at this point? I want to honor everybody's time because these are halftime sessions, but okay.
Well, I appreciate everyone coming to this. I mean, it's, you know, for me to be able to talk, I don't actually love talking about myself all the time. I you know, and I appreciate all of you coming to hear me speak. That's really wonderful. And I just know at the end of the day, I wouldn't be able to do what I have a great team around me. And if it wasn't for my team, like I look at in all of Connecticut, we have 180 agents, and they're the ones doing all the hard work. I'm just the one who I get to have little shepherds, you know, staff.
So with that, EA and Elizabeth also, thank you so much for today. It was beyond my expectations and so honored to have you. And I look forward to the days that you're in the Darien office and hanging out in the puzzle and the coffee and just chatting. So, and nice to have everybody today, and looking forward to hopefully seeing you again soon at another HAYVN Halftime. This was wonderful. Thank you very much.